Hi, I'm Josh Cho. This is a Chosky review. And my guest here, Dr. Berkson, from the last video. We're going to do the Glenfiddich 15.
All right.
So the 15 is 3 extra years, and it's what they call a Solera vat process, and I think it's a common process in the wine industry, specifically sherry wine in Spain. And the process is basically where they have in their holdings, where these barrels are, where they age, they pour either the wine, if they're doing Solera vat for wine, or if, in this case Glenfiddich, they're pouring the whiskey, in barrels in succession from the top to the bottom. So Solera vat, from what I researched in Spanish, it means on the ground. So the barrel that's on the ground, there's either 3 or 4 barrels that are stacked in rows from the top to the top to the bottom. And the bottom one is where they pour all the whiskey out at the end. Technically, all the whiskey doesn't get poured out. What happens is they still keep a volume of whiskey on the bottom barrel. So every time they pour the whiskey down the row, there's a younger whiskey that gets transferred to the barrels that go on the bottom. So it's essentially sort of kind of getting a mixture of different ages as it goes through the barrels from the top to the bottom. And liquids are always in the barrel, they never pour it all entirely out, so that when the next batch of whiskey comes for the next year, it's mixing in with the previous whiskey. That sort of makes sense?
Yeah, the bridge each year, kind of.
The bridge each year, and to essentially create whiskeys that have essentially really old whiskeys. It's something that can be even more, older than 15 if the Solera vat started 50 years ago. So the 15 is a combination of 3 barrels. It's European oak, which is sherry basically, new oak, and it doesn't say if it's a new bourbon oak, a new oak from or bourbon barrel. I believe it's probably a new European oak. And then the 3rd barrel is in bourbon barrel. So those are the 3 barrels. And I think the more recent Glenfiddich 15 that I went online didn't mention anything about bourbon, so they might have changed it. I have no idea. It's doubtful. But the one that I have on this bottle, it says bourbon, a sherry, and a new European oak, or a new oak.
And the 12 has, I believe, just 2 casks, right?
That's right, yeah.
Okay.
2 barrels, and that's the bourbon and the European oak sherry. So this is 2 of those plus the new European oak. Or new oak. I'm not sure if it's European or not, but my hunch is that it's European. So probably a little bit more sherries, a little bit longer. 3 years probably end up making it a little bit sweeter, possibly smoother. That's the idea. I paid $40 for this. I got a great deal. It's probably about $50 at this point if you want to get it really cheap here in Southern California. But I went and researched online, and they're upwards to $80. So it's not a cheap whiskey. Definitely. Double the price, or close to double the price to the 12-year-old. So, we're going to go straight to it.
Yeah.
Okay,
all
cool.
Right. Go ahead.
So, didn't have the 12-year-old case, but it's pretty much what the 12-year-old case looks like, except it's green, probably, instead of red.
Yeah,
I don't know.
this is red.
So,
last one's green.
This one's 15. The 15 is clear, so same thing like the Glenlivet. The 15-year-olds and 18-year-olds are clear. Still the same shape, triangular, smooth around the corners. And
why was it triangular again?
That was sort of, I think...
It's easier to grip?
I don't know exactly if it was for the grip. I think maybe
no.
The construction was to make it, if it's a triangle, it's supposed to be stronger than a circle. I don't know if that's true or not.
All right.
It could also be a marketing thing, because it was one of the few distillers that
likely,
had a triangular shaped bottle.
Okay.
So... Well, what I didn't mention about the color of the 12, but I'll mention it for the 15. That the 15 is definitely a nice mahogany. I would say almost like a golden mahogany color. It's got some red in it, so I would say like mahogany. It's kind of golden red. Pretty deep. The 12. Well, I still have some from the last review. You can tell in the camera. 12 is definitely lighter. I say the 12 kind of looks more like a yellow gold color, and this one has got some red, so it's more of a mahogany. Now, I don't know if it's natural color. It doesn't say so on the bottle, so my inkling is to say that it has been added with some E150 like the Glenlivet. So we'll get straight to the nose. And what I'm going to do is I have the 12 here from the last review so that we can gauge the differences to see if there are any actual objective differences we can make from the smell and taste by comparing it with the 12 and tell you whether or not it's actually that different. So we'll get to looking at the, whoa, almost dropped the bottle, it's kind of on a unstable table.
Alright.
So the nose is almost similar to the 12, but
it is. But now, you know, in the 12, I said that there was very little alcohol burn. Now, I mean, this obviously has even less.
Yeah, this one has less. I agree with that.
But it's very similar in the flavor.
I would say it's a little bit. It's slightly got a deeper, like a brown sugar almost kind of smell, like a little bit more honey.
Yeah.
A little bit, not much more, but a little bit more honey. So it does smell a little bit sweeter to me. But let me smell the 12 really quickly.
Yeah, it is sweeter. I still am getting this sour, kind of green apple.
Yeah, it's a little bit of that, still the same fruit that we kind of picked up with the 12.
And with less cinnamon, less spicy.
Yeah, I would say less cinnamon, less spice.
It's sweeter. What else is back there? Some other stuff.
I would say, did you say less cinnamon or more cinnamon?
I thought there was less.
I would say less cinnamon.
Yeah.
Yeah, less spice.
Mm-hmm.
More sweetness up front, less spice, and I would say now like a little bit of that darker sugar, like a caramel. Like not so much. It's not empowering, but there's a hint of it.
Yeah.
Let me just give you what the notes are online, what they say about the 15. They say on the 15, the nose is intriguingly complex aroma, sweet heather, honey, and vanilla fudge.
Okay.
Combined with rich dark fruits. Now, I don't know about how dark.
Yeah. 1 out of 4.
Maybe like slightly, like maybe if it's a dark fruit, I would say since it's sweeter, maybe it's more like a pear that's been baked rather than a fresh pear, like slightly baked, so slightly toasted in an oven, so that the sugars are a little bit more amplified. Because the 12 was a little bit more of a lighter, kind of like a citrusy like fruit, kind of, so it's a little bit less kind of dark. Let's say it's like a lighter sugar. So there's definitely a lot more intensity with 15 in terms of the nose. Not a large amount, but I can certainly tell the difference.
All right.
Do you want to smell the 12?
Sure.
Like maybe they'll compare it and see what you think. If you can. Me and Milton actually did this before at his house, and it was a little bit hard for him to distinguish the two. They are pretty darn close.
Yeah. The flavor itself is very similar, and surprisingly, but I do stick with my initial thoughts on it, and being that this is a little bit more fruity, the 15, and the 12 is a little bit more. It's kind of a more spicy, more cinnamon, more kind of that sour sort of component. And I'd say that the 15 is certainly more vanilla. Now that you've read that off, I definitely get this more than 12, especially.
Okay.
All right. Yeah. All right.
Cheers. Let's go to the taste.
Okay. Salud. It's very nice.
Yeah.
This one definitely kind of hangs out in the back of your mouth a little bit longer.
It finishes longer, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. I would say it's smoother too.
Yeah. It's
the burn is there, but it's like the transition between the flavors. It's like very nice. It's like very gradual. It doesn't like shift gears too quickly. And it does kind of start off with that similar like sweetness in the 12, and then goes into the spicy at the end. The spice is there because I taste it more than I can smell it, but it's still pretty subtle. I would say it's definitely more sweet than spice.
Sure,
right?
Sure, definitely.
And the I don't get like a huge sherry. It's not a sherry bomb like a Macallan or anything like that, or Glendronach, but there is some slight bit of dark sugar, like darker fruitier notes. So maybe that's probably where the extra 3 years comes, and then the sherry influence. So
I'm not gonna lie though, it's hard to distinguish this from the 12. It's just.
Well, why don't you taste the 12? But why don't you I didn't drink out of this. Why don't you go ahead and just wash your mouth with some water and try the 12, and then go back and see what you think.
Josh Cho is far more of a
do the
Scotch
same
expert than myself.
I don't know about expert, but
I'm much more of an amateur, but I just had I think it was last year I had a problem distinguishing these two.
they're pretty darn close. I mean, I would say they're. I'm gonna take your cup too.
Yeah,
Was that the 12?
That was a 12. To be honest, I don't know if I'd be able to distinguish the two, but they're. What are your thoughts on it?
I can. It's not. It's really really subtle.
Yeah.
I think. The difference is that the 12 has a much more brighter taste and smell.
No, does that merit $40?
Well, so I paid $40 for that bottle, which is a bargain because now it's gone up to $50.
All right.
And the Glenfiddich 12, right here, right behind us. I think I bought at one point when I had my 12 for about $30. So the $10 increase for me was enough. What wasn't a big jump was worth it for me to pay the extra $10 to get a 15. Because the difference is. Okay, so what would you recommend it as?
You know, I'm gonna have to go with the same. Especially, it's a slightly smoother, for sure. But if you factor in the price differential, it just kind of stagnates at I think a 7. Yeah.
Okay. I'd say 85. That's
well, then
my
I would
score.
say 70. If I'm on a factor of 10 here, you're on a factor of 100.
Oh yeah.
So for consistency, I'll say a 70.
70 or 7.0, 85, 8.5.
Okay.
And yeah, so the Glenfiddich 15. I'll try to do the 18. I don't have it right now, but that'll hopefully be the last Glenfiddich of the lineup. The 12 and the 15 are the dominant ones with the 18. So until next time, cheers, and please leave your comments below, and we'll see you next time.
All right, Josh, this was fun.
Yeah. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me. Take care.
See you guys.